Hello again. So I think we've known for a little while that the LEC has been on the decline relative to especially LPL and LCK, but also the PCS a little bit. And the LCS has always sort of had the potential to beat the LEC in a head-to-head matchup. But things that recently have looked a little bit depressing just in general in the region, especially when you talk about the region depth, as well as other things. I propose that this Mad Lions roster sort of has the potential to provide our salvation, even if not, like, directly. I mean, yeah, I say that as if, like, we don't have SK and BDS to stomp on bad teams as long as G2 looking good. Although SK did slip up yesterday against Rogue or whatever, Giant X, I think it was. But you know what I mean, like, it doesn't really matter. And you'll see what I mean, hopefully. And if you don't, criticize me in the comments, feel free to. But Mirren is a lot of fun to watch in terms of players. I knew coming into this split that his lane matchups would have been kind of interesting, just because he's got all of these unorthodox top lane picks. I mean, he's already shown his Varus this split, but he also has some other fun picks like the Zeri and Ari, which I would love to see no matter how unviable they might be at the moment. I mean, they've also got Elyoya, the granddad of the team. He's pretty much looked like one of the, I'm not going to say better, but like decent European junglers for a little while now. And this split has been even better than he previously was, at least stats-wise. And whilst I'm not necessarily a fan of him, he certainly fits this roster as an experienced voice and can certainly add something outside of just straight gameplay. So that's always good. Frescari was the player I had the most question marks sort of around this roster when it was first announced. I mean, we've seen plenty of mids that look better in ERLs that have absolutely just flopped when they've come to LEC. I mean, just look at Sark in this split or the fall of Vetio. But he's actually looked pretty solid so far on a variety of champions. So for right now, I'm pretty happy with him. Like, you have to remember, when we're talking about all these players other than Oyoya, they're all rookies. And it's just interesting. Also, when we get into the bot lane, I'm kind of super happy. I don't really know. I mean, that's almost a pun. Super was another player I was a little bit dubious about. I mean, if we're being completely honest, I was sort of dubious about his whole roster, as I've sort of alluded to. But, like, he's looked good in a couple of games. Like, he and Alvaro destroyed the import bot lane of Fnatic, especially in the early game. Well, actually, just in the laning phase. He does have some issues, although the game against Fnatic was the first game in the LEC where he's found success on champion not called Aphelios, which is a little bit problematic. But, like, actually, when you look at a lot of ADCs, they struggle to find success off of more than one or two champions. And when I say a lot of ADCs, I mean like the middling ones. And so if he can build off of that and build up a bigger pool, then that's always a benefit. At support, Alvaro has looked relatively solid so far this year. I mean, he's leaned hard on his Renata, but like, unlike Super, he has found success on more than one champion, and I mean, it's sort of a vibe down in the bot lane. In terms of coaching, I mean, the coaching's definitely doing better than whoever put the announcement video that I'm playing in the background for you guys. Whilst talking, like, there's a lot of speculation when it comes to coaching in the Islands. I think we can relatively fairly speculate that the coaching at Mad has been quality so far. Like, for me, I think one of the key indicators that a team is well coached is how they approach the early game. Is that something they can prep for easily? And it's one of the more coachable parts of the game. You can see that Mad, they are one of the better early game teams in the league, rather. They sort of remind me of BDS last year, where they can do very solidly against the top teams with some gimmick in top lane, but then they will fall apart because they don't know how to do late game. And they do sort of stump on some of the weaker teams. I mean, they do have some issues in general, like they do look a little bit dodgy at times. Hopefully we resemble more of that BDS team, though, than TL's roster from last year, which they do have a risk of representing just because they are an early game focused team, because that TL team was just depressing to watch. Again, another point for coaching is always the drafting. Again, we still don't really know how much of an influence the coach has over the draft and how much is player influenced, but the drafting has been quite interesting from this team, so I think we can assume that whatever conversations are going on are productive conversations. I mean, I may have taken shots at Super's pool earlier in the video, but both him and Alvaro showed deep pools last year, so that's another benefit. And then on top, we've already seen that they've leaned on Mirren's deeper pool to destroy Fnatic in the draft with the Varus flags. What will be interesting to see, though, is how their drafting develops later on into the year, as they get more comfortable in the LEC, and Super and Navarro gain confidence to move off of their comfort. Another point that's about this team that offers hope for the LEC as a region is that not only is this team acting as proof that there is still plenty of talent in the ERLs in terms of players that can step up to the LEC, but also the coaches. The coaches were picked up from Movistar Riders and LDLC. LDLC weren't especially good, and like, being able to pick up a decent coach from them is just a good sign. I think he's the assistant coach is the one that came from LDLC, but that's still, like, it's still a good sign as far as I'm concerned. It also might mean that the lack of creativity when it comes to coaching pickups, which has led to a lot of almost incestuous pickups going around the league, means that the more boring drafts that we've had so far could be on the way out sometime soon. I think I'm mostly coping when it comes to that. I do think that a lot of LoL recruitment in general is rather incestuous, and especially within the region, I think we don't really look at developing players, we don't really look at developing coaches from the ERLs often enough at all, and I don't think we actually really treat the coaching role with a lot of respect, but we'll see what happens. Let me know what you think. I'm mostly coping. This is my first video back in a while, so it's probably underwhelming. We'll see how it is. If it's bad, we won't continue. If it is, we will continue. There's lots of stuff going on though, so we'll see. See you.